of.
Hey folks, just doing some signal tests for audio levels. Hey folks, just doing some signal tests for audio levels. Audio levels 1 2 1 2. Audio levels 1 2 1 2. Audio levels 1 2 1 2. All right, let's kick this off. Hopefully we're good. We'll just test. Audio levels 1 2 1 2. All right, let's kick this off. Hey folks, it's been a long time. It's been like years, like maybe 5, 6 years since I've had this channel up and running. All right, I've got to build something like 5 talks in under 3 weeks, and it's increasing. So I've been meaning to do a whole bunch of blog posts, but different generations read and consume information in different ways. So there's like conference talks, there's blog posts. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this. Maybe I cut this up and turn it into a blog post, but definitely getting this ready for the presentation. So I guess I should start with what. I've always wanted to do one of these things because I keep telling people, you need to do public speaking, but like, it's pretty useless advice. Like, you do need to do public speaking. It's really important, but like, one of my favorite talks was Zach Holman. Zach Holman did a talk on doing a talk. So this is my best attempt at doing a Zach Holman, of doing a talk on a talk. So when this is built, you'll be able to look at this after this talk is delivered and be able to kind of see how it was all built together. So first, I really got to start with like a why, like the why and the hook. Different people have different ways of telling stories or doing conference presentations. Mine is storytelling. Hey Nadia, yeah, this one is a more of an internal talk at my work at my employer, and I'll be delivering that one public again. I'm going to be over at Cyro on I think it's next week, so I'll probably redo that there. But the Web Directions one in Melbourne, I've got 2 there, and that's one to CTOs in Australia about like the business implications and some of the things I've been able to do and what it means from a financial point of view. And there's a second talk the next day, which is getting into like what are people's oh fuck moments. Have you had one yet? It's really, really important. What is your moment? And then teaching some skills to be able to do what you do. And I'm pretty sure this talk will be a part of it, or the storytelling. They'll all kind of intermerge into the second day for the devs. So, great question. All right, so if you want to make a talk, the first thing is like, what is your style? People will find their own style. Mine is storytelling. So the next thing is really, what do you want to convey? So for me, there's a whole bunch of things I want to convey. But first, let's get back to storytelling, because that gets into the what do I want to convey. So the talk's title is The Emperor's New Clothes. And I'm going to adapt an old children's classic. Adapting an old children's classic. So here we have the Emperor. And the Emperor is essentially all these coding agents that are coming to the market right now. Like you've got all these little things, and they're all basically reselling the same general concepts. So as I go through this, let's put some notes. So let's get into this is where we start getting into the points. Let's change this over. Okay, hot pink, because hot pink is cool. Now, what we've got is we've got a bunch of companies have bought coding agents to market. That's going to be like the main prize. And unlike what's going to be really interesting is, and then I'm going to use some like storytelling prop over here, is that, okay, we've got Claude, we've got OpenAI, we've got Gemini, we've got the foundation models. Now, unlike in the children's tale, they know, well, actually pretty much maybe very similar to the children's tale. Like, they know the Emperor has no clothes. Claude, OpenAI, Gemini, they know that the Emperor has no clothes. They know that each one of these different tools are all the damn same. All of them. The small little differences, but they're all being kind of like, this is where we start getting into more of a problem. Like, if you're going to have a good story, you need to have a bit of a tale of what's wrong. So this is where we get into the problem. Alright? This is where we get into the problem. Let's figure out the hook for the problem. Alright, so this is the coding agents. And then here we go, we've got all these customers, founders. It's a really founder-driven market right now for these tools. So we got founders, customers, companies. Let's change this to be that. I think this is going to be really common for a lot of people. They're probably feeling this right now. What happens is a new king comes onto the market. Let's make that, change the color, because it's going to be over here. A new thing comes onto the market. Every day a new vendor comes onto the market. Right, a new king. A new king. Tomorrow there's going to be another one. It's the VS Code fork thing. And what happens is, it basically, every company, let's get to the problem here. Every company is in a evaluate everything mode. Like a new thing is brought to market. A new thing is brought to market. So a new thing is brought to market, it turns into drop everything, let's evaluate the new thing. And then we come over here, if we go back again, essentially they're all the same damn thing. So this is where I'm kind of tying the storyline. This is where I need to tie this narrative back to I'm going to tie the narrative back to the problem, or set up for the problem. And press the close. All these agents are the same. All these agents are the same. Let's hop back around. Bunch of companies brought to the market. Maybe here is when I do the all is the same. This is where we go, they know that they have, so let's bring this back. Let's bring this back, let's bring this forward. Okay, so now we've got customers. The focus here is, the focus is on the customer. This is persona buyer. If we play around here, but they know that it has no close because they're incentivized to sell tokens. Incentivize to keep up facade that it is magic. It's all magic, it's all new. We are different from the other tool. Trust us. Cool. Now we kind of got our kind of a setup. A bit of a setup. And now we will... Now we get into the next. So we've done the... Hey everyone, thanks for joining today for the talk. Today's about the Emperor's New Clothes. I'm sure this is close to your heart right now. You're seeing every day that a bunch of companies are bringing coding agents to the market. You might actually see that, like, by the time I give them this talk, there's another one and another one. It feels like they're coming out every week right now. And you might be wondering, like, what is the theme of this talk? The theme of this talk is kind of like the Emperor's clothes, like off the old children's tale. And it's also a talk about foundation models and how you can think about this space. The thing is, every time a new vendor comes to market, they say that they're different to any competitor, or they're just all very, very, very different. It's creating a lot of noise in this space, but they're all really just the same. Like the foundation models, like Claude, OpenAI, Gemini, they know that it's the same. They know they're incentivized to sell tokens. The vendors are incentivized to keep the facade up that it's magic, that they're all different from each other, but they're all just the same. And this creates noise in the market. Noise in the market. This creates noise in the market, and the noise in the market is like, oh wow, XYZ just came out, let's drop everything, let's evaluate it. What can we do to evaluate? So let's do procurement. Oh my gosh. Okay, we've got to do engage procurement. We're going to engage procurement. We've got to engage legal to review contracts. We've got to set up meetings, set up meetings with every vendor. All right. So what happens is, the problem is like these new tools come out, and unlike in the here we go. Story narrative. Unlike the children's tale, the buyers don't know that there are no clothes. This is where we invert the hook. This is where we invert the hook. This is where we invert. This is a story element. Alright, so let's play this back again. So a bunch of companies have brought coding agents to market. Sweet. The vendors, the foundation models, there are no clothes. The customers know that, unlike the children's tale, like, they don't know there's any clothes. And so we've got this stage. Like, I think we've got a pretty good hook, and it hits home to like the pain points of everyone right now. Like, if you're evaluating tools, every company's evaluating tools. It's absolutely nuts. And what happens is we play it. Come back over here. I guess we could say customer A. We are trying windsurf. Customer B. We're trying Cursor. Customer C. We're trying Copilot, right? We're trying Cursor. We're trying Windsurf. We're trying Copilot. Cool. Now there's a problem here. And I'm gonna tap into that really quickly and revisit it later. Kind of like almost like a story plot point. What color have I got for problems? Problems all green. Cool. Let's do personas. Let's just change the color. I'll fix this all up later. Okay, problem. They think that customers are looking up reviews of performance of tools. That might seem really weird and unhinged to say customers are looking up reviews for tools and performance, but I'll expand and explain. Let me expand on this one. So customer A says, hey, we're using Windsurf. B, we're going to try Cursor, Copilot, and then maybe they switch and change tails. Maybe they look up something on Google and they come across a review about the performance or some benchmark. Let's kind of skip over the benchmark stuff. But they go, oh yeah, I'm using Windsurf with Claude 3.7. With Claude 3.7. There is no such thing as Claude 3.7. There's a pinned version of Claude. There's a pinned version of OpenAI. There's a pinned version of Gemini. Now, each one of these vendors and different things, you'll never know if they're pinned or unpinned. So these foundation models are continually evolving their training data and training sets. So they look at some old reviews on performance, and then maybe they buy like they normally prototypically have purchased. And it's just shifting continually. The entire thing is just accelerating. And none of these, this is where we get the problem. None of these vendors reveal if they are pinned or unpinned. They just say the high level. We use 3.7 with thinking. It lacks detail. If you want to compare a product like tool to tool or vendor to vendor, you have to understand the pinning and whether they're pinned or unpinned. Now, maybe this is not liking the structure from this point. I gotta play here. This is where we can go, hey, this is where we got a story element. Story, go harder on problems. So we got story, this is like story background, and over here, story opener. Oh, story opener, we've got story background. Now, unlike children's tales that are, okay, the story's continuing. Okay, this is where we, like, the first problem. First problem. Now, the next thing is, this is, okay, this is problem 2. Problem 2. Now, this is where we put the M. Night Shyamalan hook. We go, hey. Doesn't have to be this way. It's all the same 500 lines of code running a hook. There's some more technical nuance, and there's some pretty great things that each one of these vendors do very differently. But like, I want to remove the magic. So this is where we get to the goal. Remove the magic of these agents and stop customers from this evaluation frenzy. Be a little bit more cynical. Yeah, just a little bit more cynical, so they can ask better questions. They can ask better questions from the vendor. Cool. Now, I'm not sure what I'll do with this one. Maybe it's a story. You can build your own agent. Yeah, I think this is where we go. You can build your own agent. And then maybe we do some reinforcement. Comp sets that follow. Follow, and then we got maybe over here. You can build your own loom. There's the saying here. There's a saying here. I've been using a storytelling device lately, describing things as a loom, all these coding agents as a loom, meaning going back in time to the time that we had essentially weavers, right, by hand, artists by hand, and they were weaving, and the loom came around, and it really displaced. It had a displacive effect on people who were weaving. And it's also, if I remember right, it's the origin story where we got Luddites from. I have to check that one. And I think there's a lot of similarities. A lot of similarities between Loom and what's now happening in software by AI. To do. Cool. So let's go for let's kick this off again. What do you want to convey? All these tools are roughly the same. How they work under the hood. I hope to stop the evaluation cycle in these companies. A new thing comes out, let's drop everything. Let's drop everything and evaluate. Okay, what do you want to convey? What do you want people to walk away with? Let's try this out, 25. Okay, what do you want people to... Understand the agentic loop. Understanding how these tools work under the hood. Starter steps how to build your own. Of core concepts. Cool, I think those 4 is pretty good. So the reason I'm putting this here is I'm going backwards in time. And this is going to be like criteria when I deliver my talk. Did I hit these points? And that will be telling me if there's something wrong with my conference structure. Same here with the convey and outcomes. I split convey from outcomes because one is what you want to tell, but the other one is measured based on what you tell, if it is. So you do the talk, you record it, and you measure against the two. Cool. Hey everyone, thanks for coming to the Emperor's New Clothes. Yada, yada, yada. It seems like every day that a new tool comes to market, right? And there's so many now, and it feels kind of overwhelming. And I've got a story here very similar to the Emperor's New Clothes. But like the Emperor's New Clothes, we have all these foundation models. So these foundation models, they're very similar to the story. They know that the Emperor has no clothes. They know that it's nothing magic. The agentic thing that they're selling is not magic. But unlike the story, unlike the children's story, the buyers, they don't know. They don't know. In the children's story, that the public knew that there was no clothes. In here, they don't, and they connect that up together. Everyone's in an evaluation frenzy. All companies all around the world are in this evaluation frenzy. They don't have the right information, what to ask. And Hey, cheers, Small. Um, Thanks. It's really nice to help hear that when I've got nothing to sell, like it's help. I'm trying to piece together. Everything is changing. That's all I know. I don't know where it's going. I'm trying to piece together and just teach and share what I know. Cool. Thanks. Oh, teenage engineering. Yeah, there's some toys back here. I just racked the wing rack the other day, and it's like a JP8080, 2600, and my gosh, so many. So yeah, I've got to patch them and get it up and running. Okay, so now we start getting into. It doesn't have to be this way. Like this is kind of like, you know that meme, like she won't keep saying, she won't shut up talking about this particular thing. Like, Your Honor, she won't stop. Like that point. And then we get over to, you can build your own loom, and maybe it's a story point. Maybe this is where we go. What is happening now is similar to the Weavers in a time ago. What is happening now is similar to what Weavers what's happening now. And then we start getting into the details. This is where you get your payoff. This is where you get your payoff. The first one should be okay. When we start getting into the technical details, this is where you can lose people. So the first one, you should be okay on checking an engagement in the crowd to figure out if you need to go deeper or harder to the talk. All right. So the first one I want to bring to your attention is like one of the first fundamental concepts is there's system prompts. I'm sure everyone here has heard about system prompts. But did you know? Oh. So we are. Story. Did you know? Like for all these emperors out there right now, like their system prompts are all leaked. They're on GitHub. You can go have a look. You can see. So I guess this gets into the goal. Go look at the prompts. Go look at the prompts. And this is where you get a goal. And this is getting rare. This is like more of an advanced goal. Consider why the techniques in X tool, X vendor may be more effective than Y. I don't expect people to get that yet if they're very new on the journey. But as you stare into the latent space, you start to develop a taste into particular things you can put into the context window that can kind of tickle the matrix of achieving particular outcomes. And this is where you get into prompt engineering and evals. Let's come over here. Okay, if you have never seen one before, here's one. Cool. Alright, so in case you haven't seen a system prompt before, assuming zero knowledge, like here's the one for windsurf. Cool. And this is where there's really a decision on time and pace, because then you can go like, hey, you start at the top introducing an identity function. I guess up here we've got an identity function. We've got an identity function. You are Cascade. That's an identity function. This is how it identifies and self-identifies itself, and like how you're asking for all interactions to always say that you're Cascade, not Claude, if you're using the Claude model, the Sonnet models. Now, this is where we put, next thing we got is like context to the task. It's like priming what user messages should be related to. I've got to work on this explanation of that. So there's priming the context in the system message, like, hey, you're a coding assistant, and it's your job to work with the user. So that primes the user aspect, like you're going to be interactively. So here we go, we're priming interactive mode. Here we are, like priming interactive mode. Here again, for some reason, there's repetition, that it's an interactive mode, which is fascinating. Priming the context, priming activities or jobs to be done, such as debugging, answering questions. Oh, that's interesting. I don't know how many people know this, but like you can use all these coding. You can use all these coding assistants as like the same you use Grok or ChatGPT. You can have conversations. Like literally all these coding agents are just ChatGPT. They don't have to do coding tasks. I don't need to do coding tasks. Which is fascinating. There are people that don't get that. So it's really cool because if you have a conversation, maybe this is go too off topic. If you have a conversation with the LLM, you can then split it up into tasks or research mode to generate specs. Maybe that's for a separate talk. Okay, now we've got here, we've got a bit of a control. Don't invoke tools unless the user consents. So it's a control / consent topic. Most of all these tools all follow, all these IDE agentic things all follow these same concepts. It's just a bit of repetition here about like tool calling. Don't execute commands unless like there is consent over it. Cool. So we're like, hey, it doesn't have to be this way. Like if you knew how simple it was, that there was no cloves, you could build your own. Ooh. Doesn't have to be this way. You can build your own. Cool. And this is where I quickly hop into something here because it's really important. Tox a second is a concern. I'll explain that. It's going to be a little bit ad hoc, but like, yeah, you can sign up to Anthropic, get your own developer, developer API key, and you can build this at home, etc. But like, unless you got a real product and you've like you're a company, you've negotiated like capacity in the like as like throughput a second, the default API limitations for a lot of these things is really low. So it's not a great fit to. Not everyone's going to be able to build it unless you go through commercial aspects to be able to get capacity to increase API limits. But at home you can build it. But I want to make sure that I cover that back over here. Okay, this is where we get to the next. Okay, so the first concept is a system prompt over here. Then we get into tools. You're like, hey, what is a tool? Goal 1. Check audience. This is like a checkpoint for myself. Make sure that I haven't gone over time, not rambling, and check the audience is still attentive. Okay, sweet. There we go. Now that you know what a system prompt is and how to, where to find them, let's talk about tools. So this here is a recap. It's a staging. It's like a recap of what was just said. In this case, I'm tuned out, and this is staging what we're going to talk about next. Let's talk about tools. Go. Next up, here we go. In the same GitHub repo, you'll also find tools for each tool, for each vendor. And this is where potentially I'm lacking. This is where I'm potentially lacking something. I'm already seeing a hole. Seeing a hole where like I'm going straight for prompts and I'm introducing tools, but I'm not talking about the association and how they go together. High-level diagram. I have to fix that later. So, because I'm diving straight into the details. I've talked about system prompts, now I'm talking about tools, but I haven't really explained what a tool is. And I'm going straight into the detail about the particular tools. So I'll have to fix that later. Okay, cool. Assuming that you have that, okay, all these coding agents, they all generally have they have different levels of tools and what they can do, but they all generally follow the following 4 or 5 primitives. They use ripgrep to search for patterns in a code base. So if you want to refactor a method signature, it'll search and execute ripgrep to do that search. And then when that search has been done, the results of that command are then inputted back into the context window. So this is perhaps this is where I've got another problem. Missing the loop back. So it's like POSIX pipes all the way down. We need to loop back outcomes. Cool, loop back outcomes to the LLM. Cool, we've identified a needle across files that need to be updated. The next step is the next general tool that they have is give you the structure of iProject. Now, maybe this is going a little bit off topic, but the list here doesn't really work. This here doesn't really work for large mono repos, and I haven't seen any vendor crack this yet. If you're dealing with large mono repos, like large enough to take GitHub offline, what you normally have is you have something like Buck2 or Bazel or any of those tools like that. And all these coding agents are all being built for like the consumer mindset, like easy. And the idea is you got a directory structure and you go down, like you just like give me a tree, like the equivalence of tree command, and it shows me the layout structure on the file system. But if you get into these big mono repos, like you have, it's essentially exposed as a graph, and you have all the particular dependencies to be able to do that. So if you enumerate a tree of that current directory, you're just missing edges for consideration for when it does. When you does that grep search, like how does it know like what to bound the grep search for? So maybe this goes before that. I'm gonna think about it. Because you want to like if you want to narrow the search down to potential candidates in it within the directory structure, but the directory structure is the wrong thing for a very large mono repo. It needs to be a slice coming from a build tool or some other thing. So this is where we get into topics such as repo mix. The way to look at this, it's basically a repo mix. Basically a repo mix. Sweet, done. Okay, I got to come back. Cool, I got structure problems there. Okay, so now that we've got a directory structure or repository layout, and we've done an neat little haystack of potential targets within that repo mix directory layout. The next thing is like, hey, I've got a file. I need to read that file into the context window. All these vendor tools follow this general pattern, and they need to read the file back into the context window. Here's the example for Windsurf. Sweet, done. Quite simple. And this is the point. This doesn't feel right. Doesn't really feel right, but maybe I'm just tired. Yeah, no, I think it's right because I'm not explaining how it works. I shouldn't be explaining how it works yet. I'm just explaining the tools. So, the next tool that we have is edit file. It seems quite simple. Now it makes sense to explain where it is now. I need to explain problem, explain application and utility for each tool, use cases, so people can reason about them. You have to do that for each one of the slides. Cool, gonna have to do this for each one of the slides. Cool, same problem here. And the next primitive and the final primitive of tools is it's just executing commands and running a command. Seems really simple. It's things like executing git add. This could be at the add. This could be like, this is where we go, executing git. Cool, I've got git. Next thing is executing git, cargo build, cargo test, all that basic stuff. This is where we get into the problem again. Loop back is important. Command output is fed back to the LLM. Yeah, I need to explain. As I go through each one of the tools, I need to explain the context, the utility, and how it all works, because it is a setup. Good talks have repetition in them. Key points of repetition. Okay, cool. It's repetition 1. First repetition, repeating story point. You can build your own. Repetition 1, you can build your own. Repetition 2 is loop it back to the LLM. Tools loop back to the LLM. Now it's an open question whether I hammer home this point of the second repetition on every slide. You can convey it in different language to make it not seem repetitive, or you can go a comedian route. It really just depends on how much you carry the audience. Cool, this is where we go. Okay, I now need to recap. Recap what was said. Now you know what a prompt is and where to find them. You now know about tools and the 5 core tools in IDE agentic coding assistant. You now know about 5 core tools in a coding system. So now I need to do staging. Let's talk about the event loop. Sweet. Okay, so we've already got an immediate problem. Already got an immediate problem. We've got a whole problem. We don't have any diagram. No diagram explaining what the tool, what the event loop looks like. Now, this should be the payoff. It should be the payoff for that second repetition. Tools loop back onto themselves into the LLM. This is the payoff. This is where show high level of how all if I'm even right. Oh yeah, chat. Morte, no, I haven't been playing with Ollama's local tool calling. I do have a 4090, and I've got a coworker who's been playing with quantization, and that's his particular path. I've been looking more at the foundational models. I'm keen to try it. Apparently, Salesforce has a really aggressive tool calling model that's really small. It doesn't require much VRAM, but I haven't looked into it yet, which is really interesting, because what you want is kind of an aggressive, if you're building a coding agent, you want kind of like a really aggressive agent that tool calls. So what a really aggressive model that does tool calling. If I look at the space right now, like, Gemini's got this amazing context window. It's huge. It's great. But I can't get that thing to bloody tool call for the life of me. It doesn't. It just, you can chase after it with a knife and it won't respond. But like Claude, on the other hand, it's a tool calling beast. But like, it's got like a squirrel brain. It's really small. But you can do lots of it because it's so aggressive with the tool calling. So yeah, Disman, to your question. So the question is, like, tools tend to overload context really fast. Yeah, they do. They do. They do. So the approach I take when I'm building is I typically build like a checkpoint list. Like an action plan. I use something like Gemini to build an action plan from like PRDs or specs from my blog post. And then I break it down into into little priorities, and all the bullet lists, all the action plan and the implementation plan is all generated by LLMs. I'm doing nothing except like reviewing it and just modifying here and there before I let it loose to the squirrel, which is Claude. From there, once you've got your action plan, your next step really is if each step, the bullet point, each step is small enough, you can kind of fit it into the context window. And what you do is you issue it a prompt, and that prompt is like, hey, and with that prompt you allocate, you start thinking on the lines of event cycles, and you allocate the context window, or you allocate the stack exactly the same on every loop. So you prime it with like, here's my overall requirements, specifications of the application. You have a prompt that says, look at the implementation plan. It's very directed, look at the implementation plan. And this is where it's a little bit weird. I found that Claude is very good at like determining what's most important to be built next. It's really absurd. So you might have this big implementation plan, you want to build a web app, etc. You want to have multi-tenant, and you want to have like open telemetry, common logging, and all those things. And when you tell Claude, choose what's most important, pick the most important. So it's even less controlling. You're just giving control away. What I found is Claude what it'll do is initialize the first project, because that's the most important thing. And then it goes straight to establishing a common error logging module. It goes straight to establishing a common logging module. And then eventually, it's straight after those core tenants, like of this pyramid stack's done, it goes straight to like implement the multi-tenant, because it knows everything from that point forward is all multi-tenant. And then from there, it updates the error module, it updates the logging module to be able to have tenant context. So driving in a loop where it's pick the most important thing to work on is, it seems so unhinged, but it's really effective. But if you have each one of those tasks that it has to do very, 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 very small, it's very, very effective, because what you do is you say, when you are done, like after you make your change, run the tests, make sure it's all good. If it all passes, update the implementation plan. To say it's done. And then you can decide whether you want to automatically do the git commit, or you want to have the human oversight. I still recommend human oversight until you really understand the failure modes. There's so many failure modes. Like full auto, you can just shred a code base really fast. You should do it. Shred a couple of code bases, you'll learn, and then you understand how to rescue a code base after it gets shredded. What I find in that flow, if you blow up the context window because like the item is too small and you blow up the context window, it's really strange, but it's because of the ripgrep primitive. It's pretty good at determining what's being already implemented. So it's actually able to like micro checkpoint itself and resume from where it was if the window blows up. So if you drive in a loop and you just keep blowing it up, eventually, in eventual consistency, you'll get the outcome of that thing implemented. It's absurd. It's just absolutely absurd. Anyway, that's the tangent. This is repetition 2. So we've got like the event loop. We've got no diagram. Let's get ourselves a diagram. Here's what I prepared earlier. It's absolutely, everything is just so damn absurd. Oh, actually no. Yeah, that's what they're. Screenshot. Cool. I have a choice, I guess. Do I bring in this post, this image for my blog post and explain the importance of like the loopback? I guess this is where I do show the loopback because this diagram's probably too cooked. Probably too big. I need to refine it. Probably too much complicated. So it's probably use this. Oh, if you want to get funny, remember before I said that you can have a conversation with the LLM? Well, you can have a conversation with the LLM. This diagram, I didn't draw it. It's through a conversation. I just said, hey, look, I want to model like essentially agentic operations, and I need it to be a mermaid diagram. I'm going to have a build tool. The build tool speaks with a test tool. If the test tool works, it executes the static analysis tool. But each one of these tools are all just looping back to LLM. So just having like that type of conversation, and at the end you just give it a task. Once you're sure that it understands what you're going, you'll load the context for you. It's like, all right, now give me a diagram. Just give me a mermaid diagram, and like all this is from that, and then you manually use mermaid charts and just drag it around. This stuff is amazing. This stuff is amazing. All right, tokens. Tokens. Get the event loop. Into the next section, tokens. Recap us what just said. Let's talk about tokens. This is probably where I talk about redlining. Blog post. This is where I go for redlining. This is where I bring in an existing blog post and repeat the messaging there. It's more of a reminder to me. Cool. This is where I go very quickly into maybe a bit of a this is where we get into the messaging. There's something really cooked with this, with the consumer tool, the consumer IDE tools. And engineers are notorious, like, oh, I'm not going to pay for a cup of coffee. I'm not going to pay $10 a month. That's really expensive. That's really expensive. I'm going to go build it myself 2 years later. Like, they could, anyone that's not a dev would just value their time and just pay for the tool. Now, it's really weird when it comes to software, but also with software devs. Like, you look at Cursor, Windsurf, they're like $50 Australian a month, like $30 a month. It's just doesn't make sense. And developers are incredibly price sensitive on that price point, but yet they're expecting it to have like amazing outcomes. The financial modeling it's just not there, because these tokens are expensive, really, really expensive. If you're going to be building, this is the next thing. If you are going to be building your own agent, expect it to be expensive, because that is the reality. That is the reality. These tokens are expensive because they are expensive. Like Claude Code shows the real Claude Code shows you the real cost. Claude Code isn't expensive. Claude Code is real. This is where we start getting into things like Cursor, Windsurf. Surf in the microtransaction game. Because Windsurf are in the microtransaction game. Understand it's like Uber. pressed low to get you hooked, but it will be jacked in time. Cool. So it's really weird. But anyway, if you're going to be building your own agent, you're going to need tokens, lots of them. Which is where we get into problems. This is a repetition of a problem. You can build your own, but it's not going to be. Event loop. Build your own. This is the first repetition. You can build your own. It's going to lose lots of tokens. The models potentially won't give you the tokens. Here we get into, maybe this is where we get into pinned versus unpinned. There's no such thing as Claude 3.7. There are additions of Claude 3.7. I wish people would really understand the additions concept deeper. And when they're talking about things like using this edition of 3.7, it's normally dated. And I wish that vendors would reveal which edition they use. Cool. Now, here is probably, really depends on timing. This is where we were like, look, it's just 500 lines of code. Go look at. I've got a question. Do I like talk through code or do I link off to code? So there's a question. Do I talk through the code? Do I talk through the 100 lines of codes in the talk or do I link off? Depends on timing. Link off has benefits. I guess the benefits would be the talk lineage. If API breakages from the model, it's not a hard coupling. And then finally we've got I guess we've got like a celebration. You can be your own king, queen. Go forward and build your own agents. That's roughly the shape of everything. It's getting kind of late, getting a little bit tired, and I'm hungry, so I'm going to drop. But thanks for tuning in, folks. Alright, see ya until next time.